Are the Miami Dolphins losers in the Jalen Ramsey trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers? NFL Network put out an article that went through the winners and losers of that trade specifically, like players, coaches, and the Dolphin side of it was predominantly losers. And I wanted to discuss this because I don't know if I firmly believe this and agree with NFL Network. Now, let's revisit the actual trade so we remember what the full details are. Miami sent Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round pick to Pittsburgh in return for Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 5th-round pick. So they jump up 2 rounds, get Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. And to me, having a strong feeling on if the Dolphins won or lost this trade is a moot point in my book because we knew Jalen Ramsey was going to be traded. So it's just like, how bad could it have been for the Miami Dolphins if we knew for 2+ months that Ramsey wasn't going to be on this roster come the fall anyway? Kind of my thoughts on the matter, but we'll dive into it more here. But I want to be in the know on what your thoughts are. Be the judge. Did the Dolphins win or lose the Jalen Ramsey trade? Go down in the comments and type W for win, or if you think they lost, type L for lose. It's the pinned comment on today's show. We'll start with a winner. We'll go positive first. The only person that was mentioned as a winner in part of this trade is Minkah Fitzpatrick. They actually had the top 5 winners, and then they had the bottom 3 losers. The 4th winner is Minkah. NFL Network on Fitzpatrick rejoining the Dolphins, saying perhaps this is a full circle moment for Fitzpatrick. Over the past few years, he hasn't seemed to make quite as many game-changing plays as he once did, and he was shoehorned into more of a nickel duty in Pittsburgh. He'll have a lot on his plate in Miami, and the Super Bowl might be farther away than it was for him with the Steelers. Now, are they correct about the Dolphins being farther away from a Super Bowl than the Steelers? I'll say maybe on that point. Like, Pittsburgh has a 1-year window. And credit to them, they went all in. They traded for Jonnu. They traded for Jalen. They signed Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year. They traded for DK Metcalf. But this is the final year of Aaron Rodgers. And sure, they have an okay roster around him, but it's old. And if they don't win it with Aaron Rodgers, like, I don't see them winning a Super Bowl. But back to the Miami part of things. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick will be fantastic in a Dolphins uniform once again. He was obviously superb as a rookie and halfway through his 2nd year, which is why the Dolphins got a pretty hefty return for him when they traded him to Pittsburgh. But then we've seen him become a multi-time Pro Bowler for the Steelers. And although he has declined over the past couple of years in terms of his ability to cover, he is still one of the best safeties in the National Football League in terms of wrapping up in the run game and not allowing big plays. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been under 10% in terms of his missed tackle percentage in each of the last 3 seasons. And if you do look at the coverage stats, as I mentioned, it went down a little bit the last couple of years. But I think he will be revitalized in a Dolphins uniform. I really do. Because he was, as it was mentioned earlier, been asked to be the nickel. And I'm sure he'll play the nickel at times here for the Dolphins. But this roster, in terms of its secondary, already has an elite nickel corner in Kader Kohou. He's a top 10 nickel corner in the entire NFL. Miami desperately needs an outside corner and then backline communicators. Minkah Fitzpatrick will play more backline free safety than anything. And then you'll have a rotation of Ashton Davis, of Elijah Campbell, of Ifeatu Melifonwu play more in that strong safety, or maybe they bounce around as well. Maybe they line up in the box. Maybe they line up in nickel. But to me, in this Anthony Weaver scheme and system, which looked really, really good for the first year in Miami last season, I would expect him to use Fitzpatrick in a similar way to how Baltimore used their top-end safeties, like they've had in Geno Stone a couple of years ago before he joined the Bengals. Kyle Hamilton, he bounces around. Like, I just think Minkah Fitzpatrick will get back to Miami, feel rejuvenized, revitalized, in a new system and a new scheme, and I think he will play extremely, extremely well. I'm very excited for Minkah Fitzpatrick rejoining this Dolphins group. Let's transition to the losers now. NFL Network named Tua Tagovailoa as the number 1 loser in the Jalen Ramsey trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I understand it. Jonnu Smith was a Pro Bowl level tight end last season who set single-season franchise records in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns at the position. but I think it's a little bit harsh. NFL Network on Tua, saying that the trade for Jonnu Smith removed one of the QB's major weapons from the equation. In weeks 8 through 16, Smith saw nearly as much action as Tyreek Hill's targets, and with Hill now being 31 years old, coming off his arguable worst season to date, his future has been a little bit clouded with the team. And, I mean, I want to push back on this thought just slightly. I think the Jonnu Smith hype has gotten a little bit out of control. Was Jonnu Smith really good last year for the Dolphins? No doubt about it. Yes, he was. He had over 80 catches, over 800 yards, and he had 8 touchdowns. But let's not act like Tua had a really good 2024 season because Jonnu Smith was with the roster for the first time. Like, Tua has not had a lot of production with the first 2 years he played under Mike McDaniel using tight ends whatsoever. Like, if you look at the 2 years before Jonnu Smith at the tight end position, 2023, the top tight end was Durham Smythe. He had 35 catches for 366 yards and 0 touchdowns. In 2022, Mike Gesicki was still on the roster. He had 32 catches for 362 yards and 5 touchdowns. So 2024 was really the first season that Tua Tagovailoa utilized the tight end at a high rate with Mike McDaniel as the play caller and the head coach. So I do not want to sit here and act like Jonnu Smith in this tight end position is one of the most premier positions on this scheme, on this roster, with Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa. I think that is wildly irresponsible to assume that this offense and Tua will decline with no Jonnu Smith. Like, I am not sold on a downfill whatsoever. And if you actually go back and look at what made Jonnu Smith so productive last season for Miami, it's part of it because Tua was out for 6 games. And you had backup quarterbacks like Tyler Huntley, Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle filling in, utilizing the check down to the tight end within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. It was Mike McDaniel calling an unbelievable amount of tight end screens. Like, Jonnu Smith did a lot of his damage after the catching it near the line of scrimmage and in screen plays. And is that going to hurt a little bit? Yeah, sure. But it's not like this guy is a guaranteed, I'm going to get open over the middle of the field on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. No, he did a lot of his work after the catch at the line of scrimmage. And yeah, Miami will miss that. But it's not like Tua is going to have some unbelievable downfall and decline in production because Jonnu Smith wasn't there. Let's not forget that this was the best season of Jonnu's career, and it came 6-7 seasons into his career. Yeah, I'm not sold on Jonnu being the one that made it happen for Miami. I'm more or less buying that Tua and Mike McDaniel made it happen for Jonnu Smith. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel for daily Dolphins coverage. If you're watching this on Tuesday, we will be live later today in the afternoon to talk more about the Miami Dolphins as we approach training camp. Subscribe for weekly live shows every Tuesday, as well as daily content during the offseason. The second loser NFL Network mentioned was the Dolphins head coach, Mike McDaniel. And I understand why they mentioned it, but once again, like Tua, I think it's a little aggressive flaming McDaniel. NFL Network saying the lack of depth at certain spots has to really worry McDaniel. But this is about as the tough spot as McDaniel's been in since taking over the job. McDaniel's no longer the new kid. He is now a man who must return his team to success after it gutted a lot of talent. And I think there is no question, Mike McDaniel needs to produce this upcoming season. He made the playoffs in the first 2 seasons of his career as head coach, missed it last year. But he still has an overall winning record as a Dolphins head coach, going 9-8, 8-9, and 10-7, which is fine. But the way that the season's kind of tailed off, getting off to a hot start in 2022 and then finishing weak and then losing in the playoffs. Granted, no Tua in that playoff game. But then 2023, being the best team in football for October and September, and then tailing off in November and December, and ultimately losing in embarrassing fashion to the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in a playoff game. And then this past season was so up and down with injuries, but the point is this. Mike McDaniel has not put a full season together. He has put 2 months together in multiple seasons, but been a little bit shaky everywhere else. And it's a maybe an unfair thing, maybe not. But if we don't see improvement in terms of the physicality, the mental toughness of not only McDaniel, but this Dolphins football team, there is a chance that he could be on the outs sooner rather than later. I am not declaring if the Dolphins miss the playoffs, he will be fired, but I am certainly going to tell you his seat is a little bit warm going into the year. And if he misses the playoffs yet again, that seat could potentially be so hot where he is no longer coaching this football team. When it comes to Chris Grier, by the way, Dolphins don't make the playoffs, he should be gone, which will probably mean McDaniel's gone as well. So it's kind of a domino chain effect there. All right, we're going to finish up the show here in a second, but I got to let you guys know about this massive deal. Insane hoodie sale. This sweatshirt's usually $69. Right now, it's $29. I'm not kidding. That's real prices. Go to chatsports.com/MIA hoodie. Links in the description and comments of today's video. And when you click on that link or type in that link, you'll see $69 to $29. Grab yours today before sizes run out. The final loser we'll discuss in this trade from NFL Network, the third exterior defense Dolphins. So they have the no losers part of the Steelers organization in this trade. Find that a little bit biased, but I digress. NFL Network on the new Dolphins secondary. Minkah Fitzpatrick should help fill a major void at secondary, but he has the ability to patch holes at multiple spots. He's also 2 years younger than Jalen Ramsey, figures to be a day one leader for this team, and has a golden chance to rewrite his story with the franchise. But who is starting alongside him? Nickel corner Kader Kohou is the only other sure thing right now. Storm Duck and Cam Smith got some experience a year ago, and fifth-round corner Jason Marshall Jr. is in the mix, but Miami almost has to seek some outside help. And, the Dolphins are clearly going to add another corner, right? When I'm reading this, it's like they're obviously signing one of Asante Samuel Jr., Rasul Douglas, Mike Hilton, Stephon Gilmore, James Bradbury. They're doing that. So it's sure, is that boundary cornerback room going to be good? It's still going to have some major questions, even after the Dolphins inevitably add one from free agency. But, I just think that we are a little bit jumping the shark in terms of why this is bad. And this is, the final thoughts I have. Did it hurt to get rid of Jonnu Smith in this trade? Yes, it does. But the fact that you're able to get a top 10 safety in the NFL and a starting caliber player and a good leader in Minkah Fitzpatrick, plus a early-ish day 3 NFL draft pick in the 5th round, when you knew you were trading Jalen Ramsey, that is a win. The entire world knew you were getting rid of Ramsey. So the value you were able to return on him was probably not going to be that high. Let's just say that alone for Ramsey was a 5th round pick because everybody knew you were trying to trade him. Well, that means if you take away the 5th round pick you got and the Ramsey part of it, well, then you essentially traded Jonnu Smith in a 7th for Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I don't think there's many people out there that would debate you that in its own move is a solid deal. So what if the Dolphins made a deal last Monday that was Ramsey to the Steelers for a 5th, and then today traded Jonnu Smith in a 7th for Minkah Fitzpatrick, and it was 2 separate deals? Well, I think a lot of people would look at it and be like, all right, they got the best they probably could for Ramsey, but then they turned Jonnu Smith in a 7th into a starting caliber safety to replace Ramsey. That's a really good deal. But just because it's lumped into one big trade and people see, oh, they traded Jonnu and Jalen to get Minkah, that's where people, I think, are just a little bit too tunnel vision. Am I going to sit up here and say it's the best trade of all time? No. But the people at the NFL Network and NFL.com trying to say the Dolphins are losers in this trade, it's a bit ridiculous to me. It's a bit forced, and it feels like a little bit of bias and hate towards Miami. This was as good as the Dolphins could have possibly done with what they had going on with Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey and the disgruntled fashion between the front office coaching staff and the players. Just a bit ridiculous. All right, make sure you do subscribe to the channel because we are going to continue to bring you coverage on the daily coverage of the Fins, as well as weekly live shows. Join the channel today.